So you're getting excited about St. Catherine of Siena, right? Yeah, she's teaching us so much, and I'm glad we could do this. Okay, so this is what she's teaching us in the purgative stage. Now, if you forget anything I've said, don't forget this. Slavish fear. Un timore severe. Okay? It's like grasping to the feet of Jesus, right? And not even daring to look at his face. Okay? So she speaks about what? Freedom that is a woman. We need to embrace this freedom. Almost like a spouse. Okay? And walk in this freedom. Okay. Now, when we speak about this freedom, let's go to the next slide. What are we talking about with this freedom? She says this freedom, there's freedom from, okay? And then freedom for. Okay. What is God setting us free from? And he not only sets us free from stuff, but he sets us free for. You get the idea? So freedom from slavery to sin. I think I've explained that. Freedom from oppression. Freedom from lies and fear. Because sometimes we can live a lie all our lives. Nobody loves me. Who told you? Right? Who told you? Do you remember Adam and Eve? We were afraid. We heard you calling, but we were afraid. So we hid ourselves because we were naked. And what did God say? Who told you you were naked? When God created them, did they have diapers on? Every one of us comes into this world. Thank you. We call it Adam's costume. Yeah, we all come into the but and Genesis 2:25 is so beautiful because it says the man and the woman were naked, but they were not ashamed. So originally they were naked, they were not ashamed. So he said, who told you that you were naked? Who told you that you are unlovable? Who told you you are not beautiful? Who told you you can never learn? Because probably even your close relatives, sometimes it can come even from your father or your mother. You stupid. You're dumb. You see, how old was she when she learned how to read and write? In her 20s. Okay? So the lies and the fears, the threat of death. Sometimes all these things can oppress us. And as I was reflecting on these things, I was thinking of these scriptures. Galatians 5:1. Please turn to it with me. Okay, these scriptures are going to be very helpful. Galatians 5:1. Okay. It says, for freedom Christ has set us free. Stand fast, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. For freedom Christ has set us free. So you need to stand fast so you don't submit to the yoke of slavery. Okay? That's beautiful. Hebrews chapter 2, that's beautiful from verse 14. Listen to what he says. He says, since therefore the children share in flesh and blood, he himself likewise partook of the same nature, that through death he might destroy him who has the power of death, that is the devil, and deliver all those who through fear of death were subject to lifelong bondage. This is so profound. So these are the merits of what Jesus, he died so that you and I would be free. So we don't have to be afraid. But there are some people who lifelong, it says they've gone through lifelong bondage, who through the fear of death were subject to lifelong bondage. Have you sat beside a paranoid person before? Oh my gosh. People are still putting on masks after COVID. Yeah. When they are alone in the car. Are you with me? Friends, what that thing did to people, you see, it only brought forth what people are carrying. There's some people who didn't shake your hands in church. Fear of death. All of us. That bondage is there. So Catherine says, you see, we need to be set free from these things so that we will be free for. Okay? Free for what? To choose a life of virtue in service of the gospel. Okay? Do I look like I'm free? Do I look like I'm free?
Yes.
Now you see the difference. Okay? He set me free from so that I could. Marianne told you, did you say 40 countries? I think it's now 45.
Probably.
45. You see? So that I can pick up my stuff. I'm in Milwaukee this weekend. Hello. Are you getting what I'm saying? He frees us from so that we will be free for the mission. Do you remember the week that we took that reading from Luke chapter 5 with the calling of the disciples? Simon Peter put out into the deep, Luke chapter 5. Do you remember? After the catch, right? Peter was so amazed. He goes down and says, depart from me, Lord, from a sinful man. See, we always look. What did Jesus say? Do not be afraid. Huh? You'll be what? You become fishers of men. You see, so for Jesus, when you're looking at yourself and beginning to go, oh, poor me, sinful me, he says, mission, mission, mission. I'm sending you out. Are you with me?
Yes.
So he frees you from so that you'll be free for to choose a life of virtue in service of the what? Of the gospel. To work not for one's own immediate aims, but for justice and truth. Okay? So you don't live for yourself, but you live for him who set you free. Okay? Like as I'm speaking, these texts are coming. You know that text of 2 Corinthians 5:17? Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a what? He's a new creation. What? The old is gone, the new has what? Has come. Okay, this is all the work of God who through Christ Jesus was reconciling the world to himself. Okay, it's very, very powerful. So listen to this. It starts already from, let's see, from verse 16. It says, okay, no, verse 15. And he died for all, that those who live might no longer live for themselves, but for him who for their sake died and was raised. Are you getting it? So the reason why Jesus died was that you and I will not live for ourselves, but we will live what? For him and for his purposes. See, to devote oneself wholeheartedly to the love of God and neighbor. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. And then to open oneself up in contemplation to the love of God in Christ. Beautiful. So now let's see how Catherine of Siena kind of communicates this to us. Because you remember I told you she wrote a couple of letters, right? She wrote a couple of letters. So listen to what she says in some of the letters. It says, over and over again, this same urgent appeal, now in one form, now in another, is made by Catherine to her contemporaries. Her one overwhelming concern, as the extracts below from her letters indicate, is that all should seize the opportunity afforded by Christ to live free from the oppression of sin and weakness. Say with me, free at last.
Free at last.
Free at last.
Free at last.
We're free. We're free. Okay? So she says, Christ frees us from weakness and strengthens the heart of the troubled, who with genuine humility and confidence ask for his help. See? So when we come to Christ with humility, right, and confidence and ask for his help, he will free us. Okay? Okay. Oh, how sweet is this servitude that frees us from the servitude of sin. Another quote. Free yourselves from the bond of pride and bind yourselves to the humble Lamb. Another quote. We must then very conscientiously free our heart and affection from this tyrant, the world, and set it on God. Completely free and sincere, letting nothing come between ourselves and Him. We must not be two-faced or love falsely, since He is our dear God, and He keeps His eyes on us, seeing our hidden and innermost heart. I long with boundless love for God, in His infinite mercy, to free you from all half-heartedness and sentimentality and make you a new man. We will do then with the Canaanite woman what the Canaanite woman did. Do you remember the Canaanite woman? Other versions it calls her the Syrophoenician woman. You remember the woman who went to Jesus and begged because her daughter was tormented by a demon?
Yeah.
Huh? And the disciple says, send her away. Do you remember that? Huh? And Jesus ignored her. And then Jesus said, it is not good to give the food of the children to the dogs. You remember that? Okay. So listen to how Catherine of Siena puts it. She says, we will do then what the Canaanite woman did. As we see Christ passing through our soul, we will turn to Him in true holy desire. With sincere contrition and hatred for sin, we will say, Lord, free my daughter. I mean my soul.
Yeah.
So you and I can actually go to God like this woman did and say, set my daughter free. Now you know what daughter that is. My own soul. Because I'm in bondage. Does that make sense? Okay. So what we are picking is freedom from and freedom what? For. Okay. We're set free from so that we can be free for. Do you know that very beautiful quote? You've heard it before. Be who you were created to be, and you will set the world fire. I like using fire. You see, I use the West African accent. Fire. My Nigerian sister knows what I'm talking about. Here they say, oh, fire. The fire department. But we say fire department. Fire. You will set the whole world on fire. Not fire. Okay? So when Catherine is speaking about this freedom and all that, she speaks about what? Guarding the city of the soul. Let's go. Okay? So it says our soul is almost like a city. Okay? That must be guarded. So she speaks about the idea that, God has given us these gifts as well: memory, understanding, and will. Say memory, understanding, and will. She says understanding and memory are more vulnerable and fail to measure up to their task. Okay? Sometimes understanding sees nothing but darkness. Have you experienced it? I don't understand. I can't get it. Okay. Then she says, our memory is busy with empty and passing things. Some of us, we live in the past. Things that happened long ago. And then we are afraid of the future, such that we can't even live in the present. See, you're living in the past, things that are gone, you are afraid of the future. So even in the present moment, are you living or you're surviving? Okay, so she says understanding and memory can be a bit tricky out there. They fail to measure up. But she says the one gate which is wholly under our control in total freedom is our what?
Will.
Is our will. Say, I have a will.
I have a will.
You have a will. Okay? I will. That's why I like the Psalms, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be. I will. It's in the area of your will. See? Because if you come before you got to choose. The will has a lot to choose, right? It's also I don't feel like. Really? You know what I tell my children? Your feelings will catch up later. Yes. Now, you think it's easy. Friends, many of you have raised up children. When you had a baby and the baby is 6 weeks old and the baby is crying at night, right? You don't lie in bed and say, I don't feel like changing your diapers. I don't feel like feeding you. No, you get up and do it and your feelings will catch up later. That's what you do. I don't feel like getting married. Really? You are married. Yeah. I want to go to my mommy. Really? You got to learn. All of us have to learn. Are you with me? Okay. So this is very, very important. So the will is very, very important. It's such a deep area that all of us have to embrace. Let me see a few quotations. And when you're speaking about the will, often, you need to grow in freedom. And the saints, a lot of the saints speak about the idea of detachment, isn't it? Have you heard about detachment? Yeah. I know St. Alphonsus de Liguori, he likes to use the word to be unattached because he says detachment often feels like you want to break away. He says just be unattached. It's not that you don't need the things, but they have no big influence on you. So listen to in one of the dialogues, right, that Catherine had with God. You remember in the dialogue? It's okay. So the father communicates to Catherine of Siena some striking insights on why detachment is needed. Listen, he says, for created things are less than the human person. This is God speaking. Created things are less than what? The human person. They were made for you, not you for them. Okay? And so they can never satisfy you. Only I can satisfy you. Now you understand St. Augustine. You made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. So she says, do you want me to tell you why they suffer? You know that love always brings suffering if what a person has identified with is lost. These souls, in one way or another, have identified with the earth in their love. And so they have, in fact, become earth themselves. Some have identified with their wealth, some with their status, some with their children. Some lose me in their slavery to preachers. Some in their great indecency make brute beasts of their bodies. They would like to be stable but are not. Indeed, they are as passing as the wind. For either they themselves fail through death, or my will deprives them of the very things they loved. They suffer unbearable pain in their loss. And the more disordered their love in possessing, the greater is their grief in loss. Had they held these things as lent to them rather than as their own, they could let them go without pain. Okay? They suffer because they do not have what they long for. For as I told you, the world cannot satisfy them, and not being satisfied, they suffer. Have you heard of the 4 substitutes? Okay, Thomas Aquinas speaks about 4 substitutes. How many of you know that it's only God who can satisfy us? If you know it, raise your hand. Okay. Only God can satisfy us. But Thomas Aquinas speaks about 4 substitutes. Sometimes we think wealth can satisfy us. Okay. Is wealth okay? Is it good? Yeah, it helps us, but it can't satisfy. Okay, so wealth is one. Okay, pleasure. Okay, wealth, pleasure. Okay, is it good? Oh, look at here, having some continental breakfast. Eating is pleasurable. You understand it? But if your whole life is centered on pleasure, trouble, because it can't satisfy you. You get the idea? So wealth. I wish you were writing it down. Wealth, pleasure, power. Is power okay? You need to exercise power. But if all that there is power for you, you lost. Okay? Wealth, pleasure, power, prestige. That's what she was talking about there. Status. There are people who are so concerned about their status. How people address them. Well, don't you know I'm a reverend father? Don't you know I'm Monsignor? Really? Don't you know I'm doctor? Doctor what? Doctor what? Were you born a doctor? Are you with me? You know how my wife calls me? Mark. When I'm in trouble, Mark Nimo. Yeah. And my children call me Dad. Daddy. Oh, isn't that so sweet? It just melts your heart. So it has nothing to do with all this status thing and wanting. Don't you know who I am? Do I need to know? I don't have to know. Okay? So these are the things we attach ourselves to. Okay? And they get us into a lot of what? A lot of trouble. Okay? Catherine of Siena also gives us a very beautiful image. Okay? So, yeah, that image, Jesus, the bridge over what? Troubled waters. See? Because if we're caught up in all these things, we are in trouble. Right? But who will save us? Jesus. He's the bridge over trouble. That's a beautiful metaphor. So she says his death and his resurrection. You see what happened through the mystery of the incarnation, the mystery of the Paschal mystery. He says in that the Lamb gave himself to a shameful death on the most holy cross in order to what? Restore our liberty and make us free. Do you know what he went through so that we'll be free? Okay? So Jesus, the bridge between heaven and earth. That's what Catherine tells us. Catherine says, beneath the bridge flowed dark and troubled waters, sweeping human beings into destruction. I think this is God the Father telling Catherine this, right? So he says Jesus is the only hope for the human race in order to what? Escape destruction. And Catherine makes it so clear. She speaks about the reality of what? Heaven and what? Hell. So we choose our own what? Destiny. God never sends anybody to hell. Did you know that? I know that's coming as a surprise to many of you. Who sends us to hell? We send ourselves. Because we choose to what? Reject him completely. He gives us chance after chance after chance after chance. Because he knows we belong to him, we came from him, we got to return to him. And so if we don't make it there, we decided to reject that. And he makes that very clear to what? To Catherine. Okay. Let's take a couple of dialogues between Catherine and God the Father. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. I know if you get this, it's going to really bless you. It's going to bless you. Okay. So listen to this. The horror of hell. For example, the horror of hell. Catherine continues to fill in the picture as she shares more of what she understands the Father to be communicating to her. It says, but those who do not keep to this way, the bridge, which is Christ, travel below through the water. No one can cross through it without drowning. Such as these are following a lie by going the way of falsehood. They are children of the devil, who is the father of lies. And because they pass through the gate of falsehood, they are eternally damned. Thus will those miserably come to their end who travel by the way beneath the bridge, through the river. They never turn back to admit their sins or to ask for mercy. So they come to the gate of falsehood because they follow the teaching of the devil, who is the father of lies. You know John 8:44? Okay. And this devil is their gateway through which they come to eternal damnation. Okay. So God spells out, it's the reality. This is the reality. That people are missing this. You know that text from Matthew chapter 7, verse 13? Prof. Martin likes quoting that a lot. About the narrow gate and the what? The wide gate. Writes it down. Matthew 13. Matthew 7:13. Beautiful text. And we read this and we just underestimate, what the area of our will can do, what we can choose. So Matthew 7:13. Okay. It says this. Matthew 7, verse 7. Okay. Okay. It says, enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. And those who enter by it are many. What? It says, for the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Okay. So he recommends, he says, enter by the what? Enter by the narrow gate. Okay. So if you and I choose through an act of the will to enter by the narrow gate, we stand a chance. Okay. That means we've surrendered. And that's all part of what? The purgative stage, the first stage. Very, very beautiful. Okay. Can we move on to stage 2? Okay. So this is just to whet your appetite, right? And to scratch the surface. Okay. So stage 2, it's called the illuminative way. Okay. The characteristics of the illuminative way are very interesting. It's marked by what? Continuing growth. So you know in yourself, oh, I'm growing. Okay. Deeper prayer. Right? Growth in virtues. Do you know the virtues? What are some of the virtues we talk about? What? Faith, hope, love. Okay. And what? Temperance. Yeah? You grow in these virtues. Deepening love of neighbor. Greater moral stability. See, that's one of the things I started to see in my own life. Okay, where my passions were all over the place. Now, it's not wrong to have passions. Are you with me? The problem is with disordered passions. Every one of us is passionate about something. Golf, hello, fishing, yeah, huh? Football, ice hockey, whatever it is, bowling. We are passionate about something. Okay? But the trouble is, what are you passionate about? And are your passions disordered or ordered according to his will? Okay? So you gain greater moral stability, more complete surrender to the lordship of Christ. See? Where you say, I surrender all. You see, that means you give all the keys to your life. Okay? Because you and I, we can say, oh, I've surrendered to Jesus. And then we're keeping that small key to the closet, just in case. And you know what's in the closet. Are you with me? So what we are trying to say is at this stage, you see people surrendering more. Okay? Surrendering more. Okay? And greater detachment from all that is not God. You see the detachment part? So you transition, kind of like you're moving into this stage where things are becoming clear. Increasing desire for full union. You realize you want to love God. Man, you know, one of the things I noticed in my own conversion experience, I couldn't stop thinking about Jesus. I couldn't stop thinking about him. You see, that's what pointed to me that I was in love. Because when you are in love, you can't stop thinking about the beloved, the one you love. Isn't that true? Come on. Am I lying or flying? You remember when those days when we used to write letters? When you got a love letter, you kept it under your pillow. You would wake up at night. If you saw your parent coming, you hid it under the pillow. You couldn't stop thinking. It's the same principle. If you fall in love with Jesus, you can't stop thinking about him. 24/7. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus in the morning, Jesus in the noontime. Yeah. Jesus when the sun goes down. That's it. See, so you there's increasing desire for full union, and you begin to see it. That's why many people, when they get baptized in the Spirit, like in Charismatic Renewal, you see how people begin to sign up for adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yes.
There are people who are busy. Yeah, they drop their kids at school, they come for mass, and they simply sign up and they go and sit before Jesus for 3 hours. Whereas formerly, you will find them what? Wandering in the mall, buying things they didn't need. Are you with me? But this is a growth. So you need to sense that in you. Okay? Increasing desire for full, accompanied by various trials and purifications. Ouch! That's the part. You see, the trials that come often are meant to purify our love for Him. Okay, great consolations and blessings, including mystical phenomena. Some of you, when you start going before the Blessed Sacrament, you start taking what? You have a journal, right? And sometimes you start having dreams. You start seeing visions. You start having prophetic words. God puts on your heart people that you need to pray for. And what do? Sometimes you send a note to them. You text them. I was thinking of you. I'm at adoration. And now you get it. And then some of you start going through trials. Huh? As soon as you started to love the Lord, and your husband hates you. You're always in church. You're always in church. What will church do to you? Yeah. But when you were not doing all those things, life was fun. Suddenly your children look at you like you are crazy. They look at you like you have two heads. And sometimes you start to struggle. In terms of God starts to challenge you. You got to let go. You have to forgive your father. You have to forgive your mother. And you're like, what? That's hard. He says, you got to let go. So he's taking you deeper and deeper and deeper at this stage. Okay, good. How does Catherine of Siena look at it? You remember the slavish fear for the first stage? Here she calls it mercenary love. How many of you know who a mercenary is? What do mercenaries do? You pay them money and they go and do what? Fight or cause trouble. We have a lot of mercenaries in Africa. Okay? It's service to God motivated by reward. Okay? So it's like, God, I know you're going to give me something if I give myself to you. That's a type of love that's not what? Selfless. Okay? It's like transactionary. Are you getting it? It all has to do with motivation. But Catherine says you are growing in prayer, in virtue, in stability. See, you're not all over the place. Okay? The restlessness has ceased a little bit. Okay? You're more patient. Can you believe this? Huh? You used to flip at your husband like that. You used to flip at your children like that. I was telling my wife the other day that marriage has really helped me to be patient. She says, no. Don't say marriage. Having kids has made you patient. I said, it's because I got married that I had kids. Okay. That, you know why I was saying that? Because when I have to drive my daughters to school in the morning, right? Michelle and Noel. Okay. Now it's Noel, right? Michelle is in college. So like currently I'm teaching a course to the novices of the Holy Cross sisters. Okay. So 6 are in South Bend, Notre Dame. 1 is in Ghana. The other one is in Bangladesh. So we have to meet on Zoom at 7:30 in the morning because it's late in Bangladesh and in Ghana. Okay. But it's 8:30 in South Bend. So I have to head to school, get back in what you call rush hour traffic. So I'm at the computer. She gets to the bathroom and I go and sit in the car. Do you know what I've learned to do? So I start to pray the rosary. I start to pray the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of the living God, have mercy on me. Isn't that beautiful? So you see, I'm growing in patience. You know what I'm saying? I'm growing in humility. I don't yell anymore. Okay? Sometimes she comes, sits in the car, boom, there's no traffic. I zoom, I'm back. Maybe I'm 2 minutes late. But are you understanding what I'm saying? The things that used to make you fret, as if the whole world is coming to an end. You see, you're calm. And that's one of the things my wife tells me always, you're not worried about a lot of things. Like sometimes she frets over finances, and stuff. And how are we going to pay for this other? And I'm quiet. Do you know why? Because it's taken me 40 years to know that this God I serve is faithful. You know how much money was in my pocket when I landed 20 years ago in America? $100. $100. And my wife gave that to me. The night before I flew, she asked me, do you have money? I looked like a fool. Then she reached her purse. She gave me the $100 bill. She said, how are you going to make it? I said, God will provide. Do you know Abraham? Do you know what Abraham told Isaac? God. You see, because this same God, I've seen how he looked after me when I was 2 years in Uganda. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you relax. You relax. Do what you can do. Leave the rest. So you get more stable, patience, obedience, humility. Okay. I got invited to a place. I'll tell you which place it is, right? Charismatic Renewal. They wanted me to come and do a day of renewal. So, I prepared and everything. I said to you. And then the leader sent me a text. They said, Father says he will do all the talks. I said, leave him alone. Are you with me? Because they said, we were very worried that we had invited you, you were going to be. I said, I've come to serve. Okay? Leave him, let him do the talks he wants to do. Whatever he asks me to do, I will do it. Are you with me? Yeah, we used to worry about these things, but now we had a great time. We had a great time when we went. Because the pastor wanted to show to them that he knows that what the Spirit is doing and all. He was doing his own thing. At the end of the day, he was really blessed. Are you with me? So calm down. Sometimes you want to react like your children are getting you. You want to react, reflect a little bit. Your husband says something. You go, "Hey, yeah, 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 yeah." Calm down. He's going to look at you and like, what is going on? You see? And at this stage, Catherine gives us another image. You know the image? It says contemplating the wounded side of Christ. So we have moved from clutching to the feet of Jesus. Now we are contemplating what? The wounded side. You see how close we are getting to the mouth? That's a stage of spiritual growth. I want you to get that image beautifully. Because now it's not slavish fear, okay? It's a bit mercenary kind of love, but at least you're close to the wounded side of Jesus. You get that part? The wounded side of Christ. Very beautiful. The wounded side of Christ. So you started with slavish fear, you're clutching to the feet. Now you and I are what? Looking to the wounded side. When you look to the wounded side, you remember when his side was pierced? Do you remember when he hanged on the cross?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know that that's where we were born? The church was born. St. John, that's his big image of the birth of the church. So for St. John, the apostle, it's not at Pentecost. You remember Pentecost? It's not at Pentecost that the church was born. The church was born from the wounded side of Jesus as he hanged on the cross. Because what flowed out? So when you start to contemplate this wounded side, that's a place Jesus has for each one of us. Do you remember the beautiful Sacred Heart of Jesus? Everybody had a Sacred Heart of Jesus image in their house growing up, right? That's it. He has a place in his heart for you and I. Let's go ahead. Okay. Now, this is a stage that Catherine also speaks about. We start to discover, who am I? You start to ask the question. See? And for Catherine, self-knowledge is very, very important. Okay? Because you're growing to know yourself. Okay? Catherine says, never leave the knowledge of yourself. Do you know yourself? Okay? And the father tells Catherine, open the eye of your mind and look within. This is very, very deep. But she says, if you look within, right, sometimes you will not be happy about what you see. How many can identify with that? Because, do you know what? Because when you are getting closer and closer to the Lord, it's like a mirror. Okay? His light shines, and then you start to see all the stains. Okay? You start to see yourself for who you are. That can be scary. So Catherine recommends that you need to gaze into the gentle mirror of God. Are you with me? The gentle mirror of God. To avoid what? Fruitless self-scrutiny, which leads to a what? Distorted image. Because we can be so focused on our weaknesses such that we what? We miss the beauty of who we are. Okay? So the gentle mirror of God. Okay? We discover our true selves and find the dignity and beauty of our true nature. How many of you know you are created in the image and likeness of God? You're made beautiful. Okay? You're made beautiful. Okay? So she speaks also about the idea of confrontation with the shadow. Okay? The side of oneself will come up on the journey. The dark of self-knowledge. That's what she speaks about. The dark of self-knowledge. That Latin, the Italian there is very beautiful. La tenebra del conoscimento, dice. Huh? The dark knowledge of self. When you discover that of yourself, man. Do you remember Peter? Depart from me, Lord, for I'm a sinful man. Isaiah, do you remember? I am a man of unclean lips. You remember? We took the reading recently, Isaiah 6. Okay? when he was in the temple, when in the year King Uzziah died. So you always, when you encounter the Lord, you begin to see. And what did God do? He sent one of the seraphs with a coal to what? Touch his lips. And he says, you are cleansed. Then he asked him, whom shall I send? What did he say? Send me, Lord. Okay? You're getting it. So that self-knowledge is very important. And I'm still discovering things about me that, whoa, sometimes I get really, really surprised. Folks, the things each one of us is capable of doing. Okay? Don't underestimate the wickedness, the malice that can come from us. See, that's why Alexander Solzhenitsyn, you've heard of the Gulag Archipelago, yeah? Read that book. It's going to blow your mind away. In the Soviet Union, because you had these guys, the communists, who thought they could create a utopia, right? And Alexander Solzhenitsyn says the line between good and evil runs through every heart. And who is willing to admit that? Have you heard about virtue signaling? Huh? Virtue signaling. Have you heard about virtue signaling? People virtue signal. So, for example, if they say climate change, okay, and you say, be careful, slow down. They say, hey, you're against, you don't love the earth. So everybody must drive an electric car. Yeah, are you with me? It's almost like a religion. So if I'm not driving an electric car, it means I'm polluting the earth. I don't love the earth. What is all this? Huh? So that means you become like the judge. Okay? You determine who is living right and who is not living right. Look into all of our hearts. And aren't we discovering the stuff that's been going on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hello. At college, some of my professors, I was an economics major, right? And one of my professors, Professor Baxton, he used to sit down and say, when you are a student in university, you have all these ideals. You are for justice and peace, and you are against corruption. He says, many of you sitting here will become ministers of state. You'll be running the finance and economic departments and all that. And we shall see when you are given millions of dollars. That's when we will see whether your justice and peace will work. Because a lot of the corruption is these guys who finish college and go. But when they were in college, revolution. Suddenly, the lobbyists bought them when they got into power. Are you understanding? So self-knowledge is very important. We can do the same thing in the faith, You can sit there and run your mouth, Oh, my bishop is this, my pastor is this, but you let them put you in that position. And let's see what you would do. Okay? Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and see, because I want us to be able to break about 5 minutes too. Okay? So stage 2. She says there are 2 aspects of knowledge. Okay? Through contemplative joy, Catherine discovered that she was created out of love. You see? Formed in the very image and likeness of God. So that's one aspect of the knowledge we get. Okay? And it says, through the practice of prayer and experience of day-to-day living, Catherine discovered that at times she could be stubborn and self-willed and often inclined to be harsh in her judgment of others. Wow. She calls it my lack of charity, and in another, my stunted life. Are you getting it? That should scare many of us. See, I do a bit of spiritual direction. In fact, this morning I met one of my directees Okay, he drove here to meet me. This boy, I've never met him before. I mean, we meet on Zoom. Okay, but this was the first time we met face to face and all that. And, you know, a couple of people that I direct and all that. This is an areas I sometimes I share with them. You know, sometimes when they are sharing with me, you know, their struggles with temptations and all that. You know, this is the first place I go. How have you been critical of people who fall into sexual sin? It's going to catch up on you quickly. Are you with me? So this is the dark side of what? Self-knowledge. Okay? If you discover that there's an aspect of you that can be harsh, okay, that can be stubborn, self-willed, that can scare you. Okay? But that shouldn't be the case. Okay. Let's hit it. Let's go ahead. Tom. So she gives us a couple of images to help us to, if you like, get into what he calls the self-knowledge in God. She gives us 9 images. All these are in Father Maury's book, okay? 9 images in all. She gives us the image of the cell, okay? The fountain, the peaceful sea, the tomb, the stable, the night, the web, the full circle, and the house. Okay? 9 images. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? 9 images. Okay. And she tells us, I want you to live always in this knowledge of yourself and to recognize within yourself the extravagant fire of God's charity. You remember the word fire?
Yeah.
The fire of God's charity. God's love is like a fire. So whilst we still, you know, get to know ourselves, his fire of love is bigger than what we discover of ourselves in terms of our weaknesses. Does that make sense? So what I want to do is I want to touch on just maybe 4 of these images and help you discover what she's talking about here. Can we go ahead? Do you want that page on?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, turn it back on. Turn it back on. Okay. So it's the cell, the fountain, the peaceful sea, the tomb, the stable, the night, the well, the full circle, and the house. Okay. So I want to touch on a couple of them to explain how the self-knowledge in God will help us discover something of ourselves. Okay. So let's go to the cell. The cell. Okay. She says the cell is really 2 rooms in one. Have you heard about the cell like in a monastery?
Yeah.
It's 2 rooms in one. She says the first room offers the joyful knowledge, of being loved by God. Okay. Don't you like that? The knowledge of being loved by God. Okay. The knowledge of being loved. And it says the second room offers the painful knowledge of human weakness. Are you with me? How many of you recognize in your lives that there is weakness? Is it painful? Look at how many years it's taking you to be Catholic. And sometimes those weaknesses are still there. Do you remember St. Paul in Romans chapter 7, verse 14? The good I want to do, I can do it. Huh? He says, oh, what a wretched man am I. Who will deliver me? Then he screams, thanks be to God who does this through Jesus Christ. Isn't that beautiful? So we wrestle, right? But that shouldn't scare us. So the cell must give us an idea of how we get to know ourselves. The first room is the joyful knowledge of being loved by God. But the second room, is what? The painful knowledge of human weakness. Let's go to the next one. I like this. She speaks about the peaceful what? Sea. Huh? The peaceful sea. Mare Pacifico. Any of you speak Italian here? Okay. The sea is mare. Mare. Yeah? Mare Pacifico. See? Va bene? Va bene. Yeah. Mare Pacifico. She speaks about the peaceful sea. She says there is no way we can either see our dignity or the faults that mar our soul's beauty except by going to look into the quiet sea of divine being. Can you imagine the vast extent of this sea? Okay. If you and I are thrown in, we are lost. But she says we are lost in this being of God's love, which is peace. There in that being, we see our reflection. Okay, see there, I think I got the spelling wrong. We see our reflection. What is it? Why? Because we came from there where God's wisdom created us in God's image and likeness. Simple. God is love. God is love. And He consumes us in that love. I'll never forget, but in 2002, right, I brought a group of young people to Toronto, World Youth Day, with Pope John Paul II. He made a statement that just blew our minds. He says, we are not the sum of our weaknesses and failures. What? We are not the sum of our weaknesses and failures. Rather, he says, we are the sum of the Father's love for us and our real capacity to be transformed into the image of his Son, Jesus Christ. What? I mean, what else do you want to hear? Because you see, many of us grow up thinking we are defined by our past. We are defined by our failures. When I got divorced, and therefore my marriage failed. A couple of my kids are on drugs. Therefore, I'm a bad mother. Are you getting what I'm saying? I'm not a good daddy. I'm not a good this. For a long time, I thought I was defined by my past, that I fathered a child out of wedlock at the age of 20. When I discovered this, that I'm not defined by that, I said, I'm free.
Yes, amen.
Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yes.
So let nothing define you. Whether it was a failed marriage, a job you failed at, interview you failed at, an exam you failed, that doesn't define you. You know what defines you? What's that?
Love.
The love of who? Exactly. And your real capacity to be transformed into his image and likeness. God is love. Deus caritas est. God is love. If you woke up every morning, right, you stood into the mirror and you simply said, God is love. That's all that matters. Amen? Let's go to the next image. He speaks about the night. Okay? Isn't that beautiful? And this is Catherine of Siena. She had little formal education. But look at the insights she's given us. She says, the night of self-knowledge. Night, a demanding period of spiritual darkness, descended on Catherine at the close of the 3-year period of solitude and seclusion at 20 years. Okay? A period of what? Spiritual darkness. Do some of you go through that? When nothing seems to work, it's like, God, I can't feel you. Okay? I don't know where you are. Did you hear about Mother Teresa?
Yeah.
Okay, the 50 years? Okay? Come be my light. Grab that book. She never felt God's presence, but she remained faithful. Okay? According to Raymond, okay, Raymond of Capua was her confessor. Okay? The Dominicans entrusted this man, Raymond of Capua, a Dominican friar, to kind of be a spiritual director to Catherine of Siena and guide her. Catherine says her spouse, who up till now had been accustomed to visit her frequently and fill her with his consolation, seemed to withdraw. Her soul was plunged in a very sea of sorrow. Okay. Can you realize that? It's like You're embracing the wounded side of Christ. It's like, oh, I'm in love. And then your lover withdraws. You can't feel him any longer. It's all darkness around you. That must be really painful.